Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to this meeting of Derby City Council Cabinet on Wednesday, the 18th of May. It's 4 o'clock. Welcome, and thank you for your attendance. Do we have any apologies yet?
None received.
Okay. I can see Councillor Prosser here in place of Councillor Graves. Any late items?
There are none.
Any receipts of petitions?
There are none.
Identification of urgent items to which calling will not apply.
There are none.
Declarations of interest. There are none. Minutes of the meeting held on the 13th of April, which I've seen and I'm okay with. Cabinet, can we agree those? Thank you. Item 7 is recommendations from Executive Scrutiny Board. It sat last night, full debate and discussion around the single key decision that we're about to address. They listened and contributed, but resolved to note the report without any recommendations. So we can move straight on to item 8 and the new vision for Derby City Centre, the ambition that we're declaring. So I think, Werner, is it you that's going to present on this?
It is me, yes, Chair, and hopefully you can all hear me. So I'm here with my wonderful colleague Richard Carruthers, who works in our planning team, who have been working very hard over the past the past year or so to bring this draft document to you today. And I'm absolutely delighted to be here to talk. I'm excited to be here, to talk to you about it, because I think this is a fantastic piece of development work. So what I'm asking for today is your approval to start a conversation with the city about how our centre should look in the long term. Now, the documents you have in your pack are a draft document, so it's not the final version. So you know, there will be some tweaks, and I've had a number of offers of translating the Latin, so forgive us for that, but as I say, it is a draft, so we will be asking for delegation to do those final tweaks and to finish the document off. We've been trialling this new presentation this week, so bear with me. It's a bit long, I'll say that, and I may get carried away, so again, forgive me. But first of all, I just wanted to make a couple of things very clear. Firstly, we want a coordinated approach to our city centre. I think we'd all agree that, and those have to be short, medium and long-term interventions. But what I'm talking to you about today is the long term. So clearly those three timelines need to work together, but I want you to think in your minds 20, 30, 40, 50 years hence. And the second thing is that this vision will replace the current City Centre Master Plan 2030. Now, that was absolutely the right document at the right time when it was written in 2016, but I think we're all very aware that the world has moved quite significantly since then. So we absolutely need a new approach. So what we're trying to explore through this document, the document in your pack, which we're calling Ambition, is to set the level of ambition so that we can gauge what our collective appetite is as a city for change. My ambition is to make you think and make you want to talk to the person sitting next to you about what you think the shape of the city should be. We will have, hopefully, a vision by the middle of next year, and alongside that, we will work on a delivery plan. So, I'm going to start, and again, forgive me if I get carried away. So why do we need a vision? So I think there are a number of reasons. And the first one is this, that we are on a world stage. We have a global competition for our city and our city centre. And we compete with them for government funding, for private investment, for tourists, for jobs. And we compete with them for the people who want to come to our city and make it their home and put their roots here for generations to come. This is Manchester in the top there, a city we're probably all very familiar with, where since the 1996 IRA bomb, it triggered a massive regeneration programme in the city centre, and it's really been held up as an exemplar of what could happen. And at the bottom, you'll all absolutely recognise Gateshead, you know, a really iconic buildings that they've put forward as part of their regeneration. And ultimately, you see that picture, there's nowhere else that could be. So, how are we thinking about Derby in those terms? What are those buildings and places that say, this is Derby, this is the place, I want to be and I love? The next one is we know that consumer behaviours have changed. So, we based our city centres on people coming and shopping, having lots of bags of stuff and buying new shoes in my case. And that's changed massively. So we've got to, we won't have the big department stores again in the way that they used to be. And we need greater resilience in the uses and the types of uses we have, and we need to balance them. This in the top right is a housing-led regeneration scheme in Leeds. This is high-quality food and drink in nice areas of Winchester. And we know that for office working, we've seen it in our own building. We want more flexible offers, we want co-working, we want shared spaces, and we need places that are different for learning and education, because young people coming through have really different ideas and have different expectations from ourselves. Next one is perhaps the most obvious. Lots of different agendas have changed the profile massively over the last few years. These have been driven by national policy, global policy, in fact. And we absolutely need to respond to them, and I appreciate some of them have been around for a long time. But they are what our citizens and our employees and our visitors are all demanding from us. So obvious ones, climate change, decarbonisation, but health and mental health, the benefits of the natural environment that we've found over these 2 years of being locked down. Moving to a mobility concept, rather than moving vehicles about, it's how do we move people? And the need to feel safe. There's been lots of talk and lots of information around violence against women and girls, safer streets. We need people to feel safe so that they linger and stay. And we can enhance our public realm, we can do things in city centre management, we can look at mobility, all to help us overcome these things. And finally, this one is we know there are lots of long-term trends that have had an impact on Derby City Centre, like so many others. And COVID has only just accelerated all of them, like online, retail, working from home, etc. And what they've done is all reduce the demand for the city centre, creating vacant units and spaces and making people stay away. So I think there are lots and lots of very, very compelling reasons why we need a new vision and why it's now. But I absolutely accept it's incredibly complicated and it's only going to get more complicated. But this is our vision statement. So when we started this project, it was really anchored in that post-recovery, that gloom. Do you remember how gloomy that was? That post-recovery. And we were talking about our city centre to stakeholders. And one thing that came back absolutely loud and clear, and from many of you in this room here, was we don't need to do little bits and pieces here and there anymore. What we need is something that's transformational and that change must look at the whole, not just a list of specific sites, but how a city centre needs to function and how it needs to feel. It needs to inspire confidence and it needs to inspire hope. So that's what we've come up with. And I think it's pretty spot on. So what's this ambition document all about? Well, we're looking at it in 3 stages, and this is not the vision. So I don't want you to get confused that we are asking you to think about this is our absolute idea. This is very much the influence change part of the process. This is about setting the benchmark and the tone. What is our collective ambition for the city centre? And for me, I find this bit really fascinating, and I could talk about it endlessly, and probably some of you could. But it's about having a conversation, hearing different views and opinions, challenging each other, and what do we really want? How do we create that buzz about? How do we talk about what we want for our city centre? Then we'll take all that feedback, and we'll look at our own evidence and studies that we've done, and we'll look at benchmarking and best practice from other areas, and we'll weave that into the second phase, which is creating the vision document. And finally, and probably doubtless the one you are more interested in than the others, is how are we going to deliver a transformed city centre? We need a plan for how we're going to do that. Of course, we're not starting from scratch. We don't suddenly have we're not doing Minecraft or whatever it is where you can start these things from the beginning. So as I've explained previously, we had a city centre master plan, and that has guided us well. Many of the long-term priorities that were in that plan are now the short and medium-term projects that we see today. Castlewood, Market Hall, Becketwell, Nightingale Quarter and the DRI. And these were individual jigsaw pieces, but with the increased demands and challenges that I've just described, we need a better way to join not just the physical and spatial aspects of the city, but the people who live there and work there and are there and their experience of it. And I think that's what we want this vision to achieve. What we basically need is a new picture on the lid of the jigsaw box. So, the document is split up into different themes, and this is our assessment of all the different agendas at play, if you like. And as you can see, it's complicated. There's a myriad of them, and none of them will be a surprise to you in the slightest, I'm sure. And the document will set that out in themes and explores them all in a little more detail. Some of them are very specific. It's about housing, it's about workspace. Some of them are thematic, like culture or mobility or public realm. And I'm going to try my best to canter through all of these for you to give you a flavour. Each set of the document has a vision statement, a great deal of detail, and then some key questions at the end. And the first one, not surprising, is it's all about people. And as I've described, this document needs to bring the physical infrastructure and the personal and emotional experience of a place together. And we absolutely need to remember all the time that we're dealing with the physical side, that it's about the people that use them. And the image that is from the 2019 Grant Thornton's report on vibrancy, which really, I think perhaps is a word that brings those two worlds together. But what they were saying was vibrancy is what city centres need to be all about and what they need to become. The next one is climate change. So we've declared almost a global climate emergency, I would say, and it's become the guiding theme and pervades a lot of our thinking at the moment. So what will a net carbon city centre look like? We need to think about adaptation and flood risk. We've got our fantastic Our City, Our River project, and it's embracing the environmental change, but how does it harness the social and economic changes we want as well? How can we do more nature-led regeneration? A real biggie is culture, and I think all the feedback is that this needs to be an absolutely central pillar of what we experience and drive the city centre towards. How do we harness the creativity of the sector and its power to provide inspiration and change? So how best can we build on the City of Culture bid, for instance? How could we perhaps identify a creative industries quarter in the city, perhaps in the historic centre, where artists and makers will thrive? This is obviously, as you all know, the Museum of Making, a real flagship and iconic building, one of those iconic buildings I was talking, unmistakably Derby. And the ethos of that building is making and creativity, absolutely embedded in the community and inclusiveness. Is that a beacon of the future that we want our city centre to be? And I think that links with our tourism offer and the visitor economy. And I think I mentioned before, sort of, is Derby funky? Hashtag funky Derby.
What came out the partnership board, wasn't it, on the other day? Yeah.
This one is Manchester. So how do we get the city centre, that place in the middle, to be a place of events and intensity and fun, going back to that experience? How do we feel about the city centre? And we know when we've got it right. I've been to Fest Day, I'm sure many of you have, when the city's flooded with people, and there's a great feeling, a great sense of excitement and vibrancy. How do we use all the assets we have to get that level of excitement? The next one is, how do we make a step change in how the places look and feel? So it's not just about the buildings, the physical stuff with the spaces and places between them. So the document puts forward the idea of a network that has coherence and moves you through the city, moves you through the spaces, and highlights places where you can relax and linger. So that might be the marketplace, Osnabrück Square, so the museum square, etc. This one is Sheffield. And again, this was a massive transformation of the Peace Gardens. You remember the old egg boxes building that they had there. And on a glorious day, absolutely packed out with people. That's something we would want in the city centre. This is Farnborough, and I think there's a really clever use, and you've seen it in lots of other cities, of planting and water. It's not massive. These aren't great, big scale things. These are things that we could achieve. Is this what we want our city centre to look and feel like? And finally, let's reimagine St James Street. How different could this look with some fairly minimal changes? And we could use this as a real demonstrator for what we want the future of the city to look like. I know that all these themes are linked, and I guess this one around green and blue spaces, obviously very linked to climate change, biodiversity, and we absolutely believe that there's not enough we believe there's not enough green space in the city. What we want to find out if that's a shared view from the people we talk to. We know that biodiversity is a really hot topic. We have some beautiful green lungs in our parks, but if we're seeking a greater mix of tenures in the city centre with more people living, we know from COVID the benefits of being outdoors, of green spaces and cleaner air. So what do we want from pocket parks, perhaps, different places where people can congregate and enjoy the outdoors? And one of the ideas in the document is to create a new city park. I think it's a really exciting one. Linking the land behind the bus station to the river gardens and across to Bass's Wreck. Is that something that people would like to see? And is it ambitious enough? Should we be trying for more in our city centre? And this one, there are many cities that have used, as I've said, creativity to change the look and feel of spaces. And these examples are from Hull. They really demonstrate that it doesn't have to be massive change. And yes, there are always, and you'd expect me to say this, engineering challenges with bringing water anywhere into a city. But it's its ability to mirror, to move, to catch the light that really changes the look and feel of the places they're in. It has a really unique ability and something I think we could definitely use more of. This one's the Winter Gardens in Sheffield. Again, you'll all be very familiar with that. And it really mixes those things up. So it's bringing the outside indoors. And absolutely quickly, it went up and it became an iconic structure. A recognisable place. I'll meet you by the Winter Gardens. I'll meet you in the Winter Gardens. Where are those places in Derby that we're going to be saying that in 10, 15, 20 years' time? I talked about it being a mix of tenures. So where do we want people to live in the city centre? How will it help make our city centre more resilient and feel more different? How will it help us manage our challenging housing targets, of course? How do we use the upper floors in some of the buildings in the city centre to create those diverse tenures? What sort of city centre living do we want? How do we make it inclusive and affordable? And where isn't it appropriate? I think that's a really interesting question. One of the ideas in the plan is that is there an opportunity on the riverside, the area in the top right there, to create a new urban village and to have something really bold and exciting that we design as a place for people to live from the start? Is that something that people want to see? I'm very interested naturally about this around mobility, and I've talked about it being about moving people rather than moving vehicles. Bear with me. So I'm really interested in the breadth of views in this. What is the role of the car in the city centre in the future, in 20, 50 years' time? Yes, it's linked to climate change, but it's also linked to the smooth movement of people in and out and across the city centre. How might it encourage more active travel and walking? Derby is very compact. How do we want those people to move seamlessly? And for me, a critical one, and one very much spoken about in this document, is what about the ring road? Can we tame it to make it more permeable to pedestrians? Are there places around the ring road, the inner ring road I'm talking about, that we might want to see that? Perhaps at the university as they develop their master plan, the Ford Street junction, the city park we've talked about, and across from the riverside to Bass's Wreck. How do we make that four-lane motorway, concrete collar as some people like to call it, into something that is much more permeable and usable? So, and I guess the final thing on that is, what are we prepared to give up in road space to achieve some of those things? Who has the priority? Is it the car? Is it the pedestrian? Is it the bus? And I think those are some big questions that we've got to wrestle with. The next one was the historic environment. Again, massive feedback from our initial stock taking of stakeholders is we have amazing historic assets and we need to love them a bit more and value them and use them. So what would heritage led regeneration look like? Oh, yes. And for me, I think this is, you know, when we go to other cities, I went to Wigan recently, and there's some beautiful Victorian buildings there. They are not a patch on the gorgeous Georgian buildings we've got in our city. They make it unique. They are unmistakably Derby, and it's something we should do a lot more with potentially. I've often heard a lot of visitors being really surprised when they go down the Strand to see that there's something the quality of Bath in a city an industrial city like Derby. So again, something definitely we need to do more with. A step change in design quality. I think you might think this is one for architects. I think this is absolutely one for all of us. Very much linked to those spaces and places I talked about before. This one's a European city. I'm not sure exactly where it is. But if we want the private sector to invest, then we want the whole environment to be attractive. And one of the questions in the document is, what is good design? I think that's a great question to debate. And I guess we know it when we see it. Perhaps. I know people will have strong views. This is Sheffield railway station. And Sheffield made an uncompromising decision that they would set a high bar for their public realm and carry that through. And we know that makes a massive difference. Look at that wow factor when you come out the station. You are nowhere else but Sheffield. Whether you've come for the first time or you've come home, it's going to give you a great feeling as soon as you step off a train. Those importance of gateways where people enter our city. And again, I know lots of people will have strong views, because one of the difficulties with deciding you're going to do this is you're going to say no to some things, and I think that's very difficult. And again, something we learned from talking to Hull particularly, you know, they set their stall out and said, you know, we're going to set our bar here for design quality of residential, and they actually turned down development because it wasn't good enough. Very difficult. Establishing Derby as a learning city, as a university city, we know that universities make a great, significant difference to the economic and vitality of a place. We've seen the university master plan, and they've set their ambitions out for the new city campus. So how do we harness that? How do we really see Derby as a learning place? How do we bring it as an exciting place for young people, and including the college and some of that, and what they've been doing in our schools? And how does that contribute to the wider city centre and the wider city? Offices. I guess there was previously a drift towards Pride Park. A lot of our offices have gone there. So how do we want to attract people into the city centre to work? People want flexible terms, interactive environments. Cubo is a great example of where this is being done really well. Perhaps we should create a business district, an office district in the city, and have something that's much more prescribed. Retail's changing. I've talked about it before. And Derby On has sort of taken the lion's share of some of those market staples and big names, but there's lots of room for independence in the rest of the city, in the city centre. So how do we do that? And maybe how is that linked to having a creative quarter and where the creative industries can be? And finally, I am nearly at the end, everyone. No vision is complete, obviously, without a strategy. And we have already set some things in motion because we believe this is the right way to go. I know you're all very passionate about the city centre, as are we. And so what we've done to start with is refocus some of our key officers so that we can start to build some good strength and momentum around that within our teams. Trying to create some sort of more dynamic governance with a board that can guide and oversee the vision and its delivery, that isn't just the council, but particularly ties in some of those big government agencies like Homes England, Historic England, the LEP, the Environment Agency, so we can lean on them, we can understand their national priorities, but we can also use their resources to create this greater pool. I think the phrase is, none of us is cleverer than we all are. So I think that's a really important step forward. And what we'd ideally like to do is co-design a delivery plan with the private sector. So a delivery model with a preferred partner where we co-design that delivery plan together. So we've got people who understand what can be delivered, they understand the market, they understand the timeframes, and there is an evidence for where the public sector needs to intervene. And I'd also add, as part of the delivery, is this is a document, when we get to the vision, that should have a long reach. So it'll set the direction for other plans and strategies, not just within the council but outside it, but certainly a key one within the council will be the local plan. As we move forward with the new local plan, we expect, while this doesn't have statutory weight, we would expect the local plan to have cognizance of this document. So finally, how to be part of the conversation. So the document itself, I absolutely accept, is very rich and detailed, and lots of people like to read lots of rich and detailed documents, including me. I know it's not everyone's cup of tea, and that's why we're anchoring the conversation in our Let's Talk Derby platform. It's very clever, it's very interactive, it will allow you to select your areas of interest and go down rabbit holes and look and explore. We'll reframe some of the questions to make them more easy, and it will be a dynamic process as the conversation develops. If you approve tonight, we're probably looking to set that up, go live from about the 8th of June. And of course, there are lots of other ways where we want that interactive, rich conversation. There are many, many uncertainties I absolutely accept. And there is no single answer. You'll all have lots of views about the solution. What we're trying to do is knit together a long-term aspirations as to a vision that will bring those things together from the conversation that we have. So these are some of the things we also intend to do. We're going to go to a bondhold event on the 27th of May to start that conversation with some of the private sector. We'll have that launch on the website, as I said, around early June. The Derby City Lab, which is again an idea from this from the document, which is already taking shape, so things are already happening. The concept of an urban room where there's a physical space in the city where we can go and interact and look at ideas about design, about best practice, etc. We'll do some thematic workshops. Really interesting. I think for me, what we need from those thematic workshops is getting the diverse voices together. So let's get heritage and development sector together and get them to have a chat. Lots of key stakeholder one-to-ones with some of the bigger stakeholders in the city. We've got partnership boards and groups, diversity forums, voices in action. We've already had lots of offers from the college, from the university to engage with young people, etc. So there's lots of stuff that we're out there, and we're also having, of course, a conversation with the media. And I guess one of the key things is how do we encourage and inspire you and our other partners to take this presentation, and it doesn't have to be as long as that I've talked to you about, and use it and engage your organisations about it as well. And I'm going to hand the last slide over to Councillor Hassel.
Thank you, Verna, and thank you very much for the presentation. I think, first of all, it would be incumbent on me to thank you and your team for all the work that's gone into this. It really is a refreshing document and the start of a new beginning for our city. We have moved on from the old master plan idea where, this authority believes it has all the answers. It doesn't. We need to engage with our public and our residents and know what we need to deliver for this city. There's little point having the old sort of dusty artist impressions that are undeliverable, both on scale and probably in budget. We need to think bigger and better for this city. This clearly, over the past few years, Derby's on the up, very much so. We have some great development coming up out the ground. It's attracting a lot of interest, and rightly so. And I think it shows quite rightly that we need to think bigger and better for this city. But also, importantly, we need to take our residents with us. We all need to own our vision for this city. I think it's incumbent on all leaders in this room to help garner interest and get engagement in this process. It will not happen to all of our visions without that happening. I cannot stress the importance on all councillors and leaders to help engage in this process. It is vital for our city. We're at such a crossroads. It's a bit of a quirky and cheesy term, which I don't like using, but it genuinely is. We need to take this opportunity, grasp it, move it forward, and take this city and show it off for what it really can be and should be, and start us on our journey towards a bigger and better Derby. So thank you.
Thanks, Steve. You stole my thunder on some of that there. I was going to go with that, but Werner, yes, thank you for the presentation, and thanks for the team, because I know that it's involved teams from across the council to pull this together into what is a very substantial document, which actually I believe covers most of what we need to do here. And what we're needing to do here is to respond to the public's concerns about the vitality of the city, but just to recognise that we're not the only city in the same situation around the country. But we intend to address it. We intend to address it in a slightly different way to normal, in terms of we're not going to bombard people with more plans or more consultations or whatever. This is a start. This is stating the ambition, recognising that we've recognised what the issues are. We've got some ideas on how to resolve some of them, but we want to start that conversation with people and partners, because partners are going to be crucial to this in terms of investment along the way as well. And things like the Derby City Lab will give people an opportunity to come in to take part in that, along with the online ability to tackle it. And after that will come a fully identified and agreed vision for the city, involving the city, and then we can get on with formulating the plan around some of the stuff we've already started, because there's lots of green shoots for the recovery and the vitality of the city. And this has been a good start because we presented this to the partnership board the other day, and out of that came Funky Derby, and now a Derby on the up. So we're going to run with Funky Derby on the up. That sounds all right to me. And hopefully some more of that will come out of this, and everybody can get joined up and get on board with this. So with that, any comments, questions for Werner and the team? Roy.
Yeah, one of the issues that we are struggling with in Derby is health inequalities, and we're looking at the city as a vision, and I like the vision, but what we've got to be able to do is to link that in with some of the challenges of health inequalities. So city living and having the open space within the city whereby people can get out and about from their limited environment into a wider area that improves mental health. We've got to look at, again, mobility challenges, because there are less ambulant people about, and obesity is becoming one of our bigger issues, if you'll excuse the pun, and there is a challenge there around making sure that those people can get safely around the city. And then finally, I would say connectivity. So getting people in and out of the city. I like the idea of using the inner ring road as that connection, but it's getting people into and out of the city in an affordable way, so that we can encourage that use of the city centre, both daytime and for our nighttime economy. Otherwise, absolutely brilliant.
Thanks, Chris. Yeah, and thanks, Werner. We had the pleasure of seeing this probably about 5 or 6 weeks ago, and it's an excellent piece of work. And, you know, I'll remain positive and very supportive of it, but curious at the same time. I think the consultation is absolutely key to make sure, you know, the detailed report goes in, talks about the diversity of the city, and the breadth and the spread of the city. And I think it's really important the consultation is allowed to make as many contacts, not just with, you know, private sector, but they are important, but also with residents and groups, voluntary groups across the city. We'll probably only get one chance to get this right, and it's important we do get it right. The theme is quite obvious through the document. Culture, leisure and tourism is really, really important to the city for the economic regeneration it needs for everybody to benefit from. So really positive. I welcome it. The work gone into it is fantastic. Just a couple of questions for me, I suppose. 8.1 appears to, for me, a bit of a contradiction, and it's around the legalities of this document. At one point we talk about it not being a statutory document, but then we go on to talk about parts of it may be used because it would be a material consideration for planning purpose and stuff. I can just see that causing a few issues. I think we should really be clear which parts of it are going to be, you know, we're going to really drive to, and at what stage and at what time that material consideration is in effect the policy of the council, because I think it could cause some confusion and delay potential developments. But apart from that, I think it's really exciting. It's got to be done, but a key point for me is as the consultation has got to be wide and accessible as it possibly can be.
I'm sure the conversation will be wide and accessible as possible, because that's what we need to engage people in, to get their thoughts on it. Did you want to just address Councillor Shanker's point in relation to the planning side?
I agree. You know, we are. I mean, hopefully.
You okay with that?
Keep you all engaged.
Councillor Skelton?
Thank you. Yes, I very much welcome this document. It certainly is very wide-ranging, as it should be, and hopefully people will be able to, you know, have opportunity to give, not just to answer the questions, but also to have, you know, give other ideas that we might not have thought of thus far. As far as systematically getting the message out, because obviously we want as many people to participate as possible, it might be an idea through the various networks that the council's involved with, and also things like Marketing Derby, to get mail shots, e-shots sent out, so that various employers can actually send it on to their own staff, so that, you know, people have got stuff sent to them so they know it's happening. We can use obviously our own networks and things like neighbourhood forum mailing lists and things like that as well. So yes, I look forward to seeing the results.
Yeah, absolutely. And we've got a bondholder meeting organised for later on this month.
We have, yeah, and we
Any other questions, comments, thoughts? Just as a conclusion for me is that absolutely, to be sure, this is the start of the conversation around the ambition that everybody has for the city. We can't deliver that ambition without some commitment to it. We need to absolutely commit to this in so many ways, not just in partnership working, but in encouraging the public to get involved as well. But we also need a can-do attitude. If we're serious about this being essential and vital to the vitality of the city, then we need to bring it throughout our own council, but throughout our own teams, and inject that commitment and can-do attitude into partners and the public. And Paul, I think this is something close to your heart, if you wanted to just finish this off for us.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. And thanks, Werner. I thought your presentation was absolutely brilliant. So well done. I really enjoyed that. And I think this is, and I'm really grateful for the comments that all councillors have made this afternoon. It really is great to hear that cross-party support for this document, because as the leaders just said, we all need to get behind this because we all want what's best for our city. So thank you for your support. It really is appreciated. I guess, and I don't want to end on a downer, Chris, because that wouldn't be appropriate in the circumstances. But you know, I think I can probably get away with saying this as a Derby resident, rather than perhaps as the chief executive. But we've seen lots and lots of plans over the years, haven't we, in Derby? We need to deliver this for our city and for ourselves. But we also mustn't forget, as Werner's quite rightly said, you know, this is a vision for the long term. So we also need a short and medium term plan for our city. And, you know, some of the things that are in this document are coming out of the ground as we speak. And there's lots of pictures of Beckettwell in particular, which is great to see. You know, that is coming out of the ground at a rate of knots, and it won't be long before there's people living in that building, which will be fantastic. But we mustn't forget there is a real urgent need for action today, tomorrow, next week, about, you know, supporting particularly the city centre, because there's businesses out there that are continuing to struggle after 2 years of a pandemic. So it is about having that short, medium and long-term vision. I think this is a fantastic piece of work. I commend Werner and her team for having pulled it together in actually a really, really short order. So your challenge to us, Chris, about can-do attitude, I would absolutely endorse. We've all got to be as one, as a team, both officers and politicians, in terms of being ambitious for our city. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. And we've started that process, as you rightly say. There's a lot of these things already in the making. We've had opportunity in recent weeks to walk both the Minister for Levelling Up around the city and the Minister from Downing Street, who was suitably impressed with our plans and along these lines in relation to the city. And we'll be selling this to MPs, we'll be selling it to government, we'll be selling it to investors and developers, and it's what we are going to be doing and delivering. So thank you for your attention today. Unless there's anything else, I think we have recommendations 2.1 and 2.2 to agree. Are we okay with those? Thank you very much. I think, Karen, that concludes the business of Cabinet today. Thank you very much. Cheers. Bye.